everybody. Welcome to another quarter of our Books, Whips, and Sips book club. I am Kristen. I'm hosting, and I am super excited to talk to you guys about this quarter's pick from Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. If you can see that, the glare gets kind of bad. I am going to be joined by the lovely Alex from Loops and Lit, and let me see if I can get her on here real fast. Let's see. Try inviting you too. I don't know. Sometimes it gets weird on this. Okay. Yay.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I swear there's always, oh, look, you've got the book in the background. I love that you did that.
I have like, it's backwards for me. Is it backwards for you?
It is, but I mean, mine was backwards when I showed it too. It's like the camera, you know, like the flip camera thing. But I love that you've got it back there because I had to pull up like a cover image on my iPad because mine was a library book and I returned it so long ago. I'm like, well.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
no, honestly, this is when I see everybody on like Bookstagram and like their beautiful big shelves of all their books, I get super jealous because like this is basically it. Like there's some behind. So for this occasion, I was like, I'm gonna buy this one because I really don't buy many books.
Right.
I mostly do the library too. So
Yeah.
Here we go.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I totally get shelf envy too because I actually recently tried to talk my husband into letting me redo our playroom because my kids are getting older now. They don't use it as much. And I'm like sitting here envisioning a room full of bookshelves. And he's like, well, what are you going to put on the shelves? I'm like, duh, books. He was like,
Obviously.
do we really need that many? I'm like, I feel like the answer to that is probably no, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. No, for sure. I totally support that idea.
Well, thanks for joining. I'm sorry it was kind of like funny trying to get you on there for a second because I swear it does this every time when I'm trying to go live with somebody else. It's like, well, they've requested to join, but then it's like I'll hit the button and I'll accept it and then it's not going or whatever. So sorry if that was confusing.
All good. We're here now.
We're here. Let's do it. So thanks for joining. I would like you to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started in any book discussion stuff, you know, what you do, where you're from, anything random about yourself that you want to share, all the fun things. Tell us about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to say thanks for inviting me to be on this. I'm really excited to chat and just kind of, yeah, like get to know you better and talk about for Blood and Ash. My name's Alex. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland area. And since kind of growing up into my adult life, I've moved around a ton. Right after I graduated college in Virginia, I moved to the DC area where I met my husband. We soon thereafter moved to Chicago. That's where he's from, and we lived there for a few years. That's when COVID hit, lockdown happened. We adopted our two cats, kind of lived this like very crazy life, and then we went on this friends trip to Colorado. And on the way home, we were joking, what if we moved here? And we actually did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we both work full-time remote, and we were like, you know what? Like, we don't have a house or any kids right now, and we have like nothing tethering us down. So like, why not like move to Colorado? Let's do it now. Like, let's go have an adventure sort of thing. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what we did. And so up until very recently, I lived in the Denver area, just between Denver and Boulder in Colorado. We lived there for about 3 years. And absolutely, like, no regrets. It was so much fun. We ended up having our wedding there and really, really love Colorado. Like, could not express, like, it's just such a beautiful, amazing place.
Never been there, but I so want to go.
It really is super amazing. And having our wedding there was really fun because it was sort of like a destination wedding for like both of our families and friends since most of them lived really all over the place. So it was kind of cool to like bring everyone together. And it was really fun. But honestly, I felt this major pull to be back on the East Coast. All my family's here, my mom, my dad, my sister. I just recently have like a new niece and nephew in the past 2 years that have come into the picture. So I miss them a lot. And then my husband really missed being in the city because in Denver we were more in the suburbs. So our compromise was like, hey, let's move back to the DC area. So you know, you can kind of get your city living, and I can be
Be close
closer
to
to
me.
my family. So that was sort of where we landed, back where we started like 6 years ago in
Full
Arlington.
circle.
Full circle. That is how we ended up back in Arlington, Virginia. Which honestly, we moved here in April, so it feels like it's not been that long, but it's like kind of crazy how normal it feels already. I think part of that comes with like I've lived here before, so it's kind of just like putting on an old pair of shoes, I guess. Um, but yeah, no, it's been great. I'm really happy we made the move, and people are always like, "What do you like best? Like, did you like Colorado better? Do you like Virginia, Chicago?" I'm like, they're all great places to live. I've loved everywhere I've lived, but also no place is perfect. So
Yeah. Well, that's very true. Very
yeah,
true. I love that you were
um,
able to do that. That sounds like amazing, especially like you're right. You've got nothing tethering you down. And if you work remotely anyway, why not have an adventure? I think that's fantastic.
yeah, no, exactly. And I guess a little bit more. My full-time gig, I am a senior data analyst at like a software tech startup.
Okay.
So that's kind of my
So
full-time gig.
what's that
But
like?
honestly, it's more fun than it sounds when I describe it to people. I kind of like the puzzle piece aspect of it. I really love the flexibility that remote work gives me, but I like the company I work for. It's a scheduling software. It's called Calendly. You've probably used
Oh
it if you've
yeah,
ever
yeah.
like worked with a recruiter or something. So I only have good things to say. But it's funny, like if you didn't know me outside of my Loops and Lit page, you probably would be like, "Oh, this girl is a tech nerd. Like that doesn't compute." I don't know, but yeah, I'm a huge nerd, and yeah, that's me, I guess.
I love it. I love it. So is there any like random thing that you can tell us about yourself? Just completely like
Ooh,
completely off the wall.
completely random. I played piano all
Ooh.
of my childhood, basically from like second grade through the end of high school. And I did these like competitions and was like competitive in piano, and actually was like pretty good at it. Um, but I really hated it. But everyone always like, especially I feel like I got
But
so
you're
much
so
like,
good and
you're so good. And I think as a kid, when you get praise, you're like, okay, I gotta stick with it.
right.
Um, and now I'm just kind of like, and then I remember people being like, oh, well, if you don't use it, you'll lose it, you'll forget it, which I have forgotten it. And they're like, well, you're gonna wish you did. And you know what? I'm good.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it. But I will say it is nice. Like, it is crazy how fast you forget how to read music after you've done it for so long. But I think if I ever did want to go back and pick it back up, like, it would be easier to
Yeah.
relearn.
I
So,
feel like it's kind of probably like the same area of the brain that handles language because I think that they're very similar. Like I
yeah.
think music is like a type of language, you know? So
Yeah.
that makes sense. I don't know.
Definitely.
Maybe I'm just completely pulling that out of my butt. It could be
No,
either.
I've heard that too, especially about like especially using like technology. Like they've talked about like how older generations sometimes have a harder time like using technology. It's because it's like literally learning a
A new
second
language.
language.
Yeah.
And kids like like that are born, you know, later in like the era of technology, like they start doing it
Mhm.
as a kid, and it's so much easier to learn a new language when you're younger versus
Yeah.
when you're older. So
Kids
that
are
kind of like put
sponges.
that. Yes, exactly. That like put it into perspective to me to like be more patient with like
Yeah.
older relatives when it comes
Like
to like
me. Be
solving
patient with
tension.
me.
No, no, no. No, you're fine.
So tell us about your crochet origin story. You haven't been doing it for very long, right?
No, actually, this next month will be like 1 year since I
Ooh,
picked up a hook for the
look at
first
you.
time. Yeah, it's funny. I really like didn't ever think about crochet that much. I've had like a few like aunts or family members who crocheted, but like no one ever really taught me. And it wasn't like I always wanted to learn. But one day I think I was scrolling Pinterest last year and I saw this blanket and it was from All About Amy. It was like her Cozy Daisy blanket. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I
it was
have.
super, super cute. Yeah, I feel like it's everywhere on Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be so cute if I made that in pink. It would look great in our guest room that I was trying to like redo. And when I clicked the link to it, it brought me to the pattern on Etsy. I was like, oh, this is a pattern for a crochet blanket. I don't know how to crochet. And then I kind of had this like moment where I was like, but maybe I could learn and I could make this blanket because I love it so much. And maybe that could be a fun like project. Who knows? So I started just like watching some, I ordered like one ball of yarn and one hook from Amazon and started watching YouTube videos and just like made a few practice swatches. And I was like, okay, I think I got this. Headed to Joann's, got what I needed for the blanket, and like really just sort of like fell in love with it and became obsessed. And I'm like, now I'm like, how did I spend so long not crocheting? It's crazy to me.
That's awesome. Well, it's funny that you say that it was her pattern because so the designer, her name is Stephanie, her blog was what got me started, like when I started learning how.
Oh,
So
really?
I learned by watching her videos and tutorials and making her patterns, and Tamara from Moogly.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen her stuff, but yeah, between the two of them, that's how I learned how as well. Just like watching a new tutorial on Tuesday, you know, like on YouTube every like sending my mom all these pictures of like pot holders. You know?
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think it was TL Yarn Crafts videos that I watched.
Her too, yeah.
And she did such an amazing job explaining. I still watch her videos all the time. I like to watch her yarn reviews.
Yes.
And I'm like, now I'm like in this whole community of like the yarn world that like I don't know. I just like feel like I didn't know existed. It's a whole new world. I love it.
You found your people.
Yeah, exactly.
So what types of projects do you gravitate towards? You mentioned the blanket. Did you finish that blanket?
I did finish that blanket. I have it. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's across the room. I have like a blanket ladder.
Go get it. Show us.
Okay. Sorry, I'm like sitting on the floor.
Oh, you're fine.
So it has like 1,000,001 mistakes in it.
Of course, that's how you learn. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty.
It did turn out not bad. I don't actually use it. It's like kind of itchy from like the yarn I use, so it's more of like a for show blanket, but it's still really cute. I can see there's like I need to like fix a few of like
the end.
I can see it right here, like where the squares are. Oh yeah,
the join.
The joining, I had no idea what I was doing, and also I didn't realize this till I didn't know what blocking was, and I didn't know that there was a front and back side of a stitch, so they're all mixed up fronts and backs.
I love it. But that's what makes it so fun and so special. Yeah. What kind of yarn did you use?
It was from Joann's. It was one of the Lion brand, just like
acrylic.
It was like Hue and Me, I think.
Oh, okay. I think that one might have is that acrylic or is that the blend?
Definitely has wool in it. But I think it might be like a wool acrylic blend, and that's why it's not super duper soft.
Yeah.
And then the white I couldn't find in the same type of yarn, so I was like, oh, I can just use another brand, which it worked out fine, but it's like a completely different kind of yarn. It's like more fuzzy. But yeah, I don't know. I was really excited to do this, and
it looks so cute. I love it.
Thank you. I definitely want to like remake another version of it in the future, or like maybe the cardigan I've seen her make with the same pattern or something.
Or she's got the bag too, I think. Or there's
so many versions of it.
I know she's such a good designer. I love her stuff. She has so many cute things.
I know.
And I try to do Ami with some of her patterns, and they looked really funny. No fault to her, totally on me. I can't match up the arms to save my life. They're like this.
I've done a few like stuffed animals, and I enjoy them to an extent, but I don't think I'm ever gonna be like one of those like full-time plushy crocheters.
That's be my thing.
I made a giant. Do you know the TV show for kids, Bluey?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, my niece who's 2 is obsessed with Bluey, and so for her second birthday, I like found this pattern for like a giant crocheted Bluey, and it turned out really cool. So that's my favorite like Ami project that I've done. But honestly, in terms of like gravitating projects, like I'm all over. Like I love doing blankets, but they take a long time. So I usually like to have, I feel like at least 2 or 3 projects at a time. One that's more of like a long term, and one that's kind of like a quicker one. I love doing clothes. I made this cardigan.
I love that. I was gonna ask if you made that too.
I did, and I actually made it with like I had leftover yarn from a baby blanket I made for a friend, and I was like, you know what? Like I can make something out of the leftover yarn. So there you go.
Fun. And it's super cute. I like the color on you too.
Yeah.
So, aside from crochet, do you have any other creative outlets?
I would say crochet is the main thing. I would say like I'm overall like a pretty crafty person. I like any kind of DIY. I almost like always like overestimate like my abilities, but I'm just like let's just go for it.
Dive right in.
I love to paint. I used to do more acrylic. I started to try to learn watercolors. I never got that good at it, but sometimes I'll still pick up the brush when I can. I recently took I think I have it up here. I took an embroidery
Ooh.
class with a friend of mine, and we made these little,
Oh, let me see.
they're little
Oh,
peaches.
cute.
Yeah. So this was my first attempt at embroidery, but I was like, actually, that was way more fun than I thought it was going to be. So
Yeah,
now I want to like embroider jeans and like, I
all
don't
the
know, there's so
things.
many things, all the things. So now I want to get into that more. But really anything, like I have always been like an arts and crafts girly. Like as a kid, I used to fall asleep like literally on the kitchen floor with scissors in my hand. Like
That could
there's
be
pictures.
dangerous.
Yeah,
Your
I mean, there
mom
were like
walks
kids.
in, not again.
No, there's literally pictures of me like asleep on the hardwood floor with like paper and scissors. Like that was
Aw.
me as a kid. Like I was always making something, and I feel like that's still as an adult like kind of how I am. Whether I'm good at whatever the craft is or not, like I'm gonna try it at
I love
least.
that so much. I feel like we need those photos, like at least
I
one.
need to like dig it up next time I go to my
Okay.
mom's house.
I love that. No, that's so funny. I wish I could paint. Like that's something I always wish I could do. I'm not good at it even a little bit. So so I will admire other people's, but I do like to embroider. I did that for a long time. I went through a phase of it and then
Oh yeah.
I go through kicks,
Yeah.
like you go through a craft kick and like you have that one thing and sometimes the kick lasts for a month, other times it lasts for 7 years.
Yeah.
But I do love embroidery. I've come back to it a little bit, especially because I started toying with embroidering on top of my crochet. And so,
Oh.
yeah. So, and I had a lot of fun with that. There was something I did a couple of years ago with like snowflakes and stuff. And I was like almost not quite like I wasn't doing cross stitch, but I was almost using like the grid of my single crochet stitches to like work it out. So I don't know. I was just playing around and I thought it was fun. So
I'll have to get
trying to
some
do
tips
more
for
of that
you.
too.
Because I
Huh?
tried to do embroidery on top of my crochet and it did not go well. So I'll have to pick your brain later for some tips.
Well, there may have been some swear words involved. I'm not going to lie. Okay, so let's shift a little bit and talk a little bit about your book preferences. What kind of genres do you prefer? What kind of authors are your favorites? Are there any authors that you like auto buy? Like as soon as they come out with something, you're like, yep, getting that one, add to cart.
Yeah, I feel like just like you were describing with craft kicks, I go on genre kicks.
I do
Um,
too.
and for like honestly for years, for like 3 years, I like all I read was psychological thrillers,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. Like that was really the only thing that I cared to read, and honestly, I was happy with that for a while. Then I think in like 2022, I read a Colleen Hoover book,
Uh-oh.
and I was like, oh wait, like this is good. Like I like the more like contemporary drama, romance, and so I call 2022 the year of like the year I discovered Colleen Hoover, and then 2023 I was like, okay, I'm over that. I'm ready to move on to new things.
Yeah.
So then in 2023 I started getting into like fantasy romance. I read ACOTAR, I read Fourth Wing. I'm now a part of like that whole craze. So it's definitely now like I'm still in that genre, but I have to like pepper in other genres, like more of like a rom com,
Little palette
or I love men in
cleanser.
black. Yeah, I need little palette cleansers in between fantasy reads. Otherwise, I think I just like
Burnout.
get angry or like yeah, I get burned out from like trying to remember all of the like
Mm-hmm.
intricacies of like world building. I can only do like one world at a time.
I
And so
get to a
I
point
have
with some of them with the series. Like as soon as like if I'm just looking for like a palette cleanser and I'm looking at if it's got like a 3, 4, 5, I'm like, nope, pass, not ready for that, can't commit.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm currently like doing the rom com palette cleanser. So I'm like happy to like open that
Right.
one up and just kind of start fresh. So just recently discovering that I actually like rom com books. I read one Emily Henry book like 2 years ago, and I just like wasn't on fire about it. So I thought it was like the whole genre, and I'm like, you were so wrong. Like there's so many great rom com books out there, and honestly, I can't even tell you the last time I picked up a thriller. It's been probably years.
Has it really? That's funny.
Yeah.
I think I've gone through enough of the phases and like like what you're saying, like peppering in different things. I have to mix it up or I'm gonna burn out. And I
Yeah.
feel like I'm already burning out on like the romance books. Like I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
this again.
Yeah. I think like they start to feel predictable because at the end of the day they are sort of retellings
Yeah,
of like
they
sort of the
really
same
are. You can
stories.
only tell the same story so many times. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I feel the same way. And I do love my fantasy books. I feel like I've kind of gotten like I went through a big like psychological thriller phase as well, where like for like 3 years it was all I was reading, and then I'm just burnt out on it. Like I struggle and like and I feel bad because especially if I get books to review that I have to put out. I'm like, but I have to be in the right mood for certain
Yeah.
things. And so like I feel bad that I have to try and not like knock off a star just because I'm in a bad mood, like a bad mood for reading that book. But but yeah, like I feel like I've gotten to be more of a mood reader, like I'm
Yeah.
starting to
No, for sure.
understand more. But you know what I love is how like on the forums, right? Like whether you're on Facebook or Reddit or whatever, there's so many like book forums that you can go out and be like, I'm in the mood for this kind of book, recommend something. And then they just nail it. And you're like, yes, that is exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, internet.
Exactly. And I'm totally a mood reader too. I feel like the ultimate like game is like trying to match your mood with what you want to read with what's available on your Libby holds. And how long you can keep them and how long you can keep your Kindle in airplane mode and like that whole
Uh-huh.
like song and dance.
Libby chicken.
It's yeah. Yeah. So
Well,
I'm
I've
in the
told you how
same.
many times I've renewed the second book in this series.
Yeah, I know. I just finished it like a couple hours ago actually. So I have like reread through my notes for book one so I won't like taint them together. I think I'll be
Yeah,
good
see, I
now.
was a little afraid of that, but mostly I was like, yeah, I don't know. I keep having to talk myself into it, but I'm still not quite able to do it. That and like, and the thing is like, it's not that I don't think it's anything I have against the book or the series. I think it's the mood thing again,
Yeah.
like I'm just not in the right headspace for that book. I've got what was the one, Alex E. Haro, that came out months ago now, but like it came out this year and it's been sitting on my nightstand since then.
Oh
Like
really?
seriously. And I'm really excited to read it, and then I can't force myself to crack the spine. So like I don't
Yeah.
know.
That reminds me, speaking of auto by authors, and that makes me think of this book I have on the shelf. I bought this at the bookstore a couple weeks ago. It's Allie Hazelwood this year has been
Oh,
like my auto by author. She's been like my guilty pleasure. I can't even say like her books are like the most amazing thing I've ever read, but they're just like candy to me. I
yep.
don't know what it is. Like
I call them brain candy reads.
yeah, Candy Reads is the perfect name. And so Not in Love was her recent I haven't read it yet. This is her most recent book, I think. And I've kind of been like saving it for like when I finish like the next book. I'm like, okay, after I finish from Bud and Ash, and then I was like, well now it's a cliffhanger, so I want to read the next one. I was like, okay, after I reread that. So this one has like been like my reward that I'm waiting for. Maybe it'll be next. I don't know.
It's yours now. You can finish. You can now that you finished the second book. You can. That's your reward for plowing through it and getting through it.
Exactly.
I do like her stuff. I like that she always does like STEM, women in STEM.
Yes.
Like I love that so much. So
I do too.
yeah, I have a STEM background too. So
Oh,
you
cool.
were talking earlier about like the IT thing and nerdiness. So hi.
Yeah. My people.
That's right. We're all actually just yarnies, and we just like to play with yarn and hooks and things. So,
Oh my gosh, that's so
do you
funny.
have a favorite book that you've read this year so far? I mean, we've got like half the year is already over, which I can't even believe. And do you have any favorites that are standing out on your like best of 24 list right now?
Yes. So I finished reading Throne of Glass series this year, which there's so much you could say about that, but I will say like Queen of Shadows, which is like four or five, I don't remember, was great and like probably one of the best fantasy books I read in a
Yeah.
long time. I really loved Queen of Shadows. Like I just like devoured it entirely. That was earlier this year, so that's definitely one of my tops. By Sarah J. Maas.
Yes.
I guess I should say that. And then Oh my gosh. Allie Hazelwood has been my newest discovery, and I really love theoretically. I just felt like when she was writing that character Elsie, that was me.
Aw.
That was me in a character. I just she was just like a nerdy, clumsy girl who loves Twilight and cheese, which sounds so basic and I'm sure fits so many other women, but I was like, "Hey, I feel seen."
That's me.
That's me. So yeah, those I feel like off the top of my head are like my probably my top two this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, before we get into any more on the book stuff of the, I say any more, like we haven't even done anything to discuss the book yet. But before we get to that, I just want to do a little this or that. It's just for funsies. So
Okay.
it's kind of like I'm going to give you the two options and just try and keep it quick and just get those spur of the moment answers. Okay.
Perfect.
So coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. um, the physical book or the ebook?
Uh, ebook.
Center pull or outside pull on the yarn?
Ugh. Oh my gosh, I'm such a Libra. I can go either way on all of these answers. I'm gonna go with outside pull.
Okay. Let's see. Work in rows or work in the round?
Ooh, working the round.
I like working in the round, especially when you can do the spiral and then you don't have to worry about an ugly seam. Pencil grip or knife grip?
Knife grip. How do people do pencil grip?
I don't know. I really don't.
I
The only
try
time I
every
do it
so
is like
often.
if I'm doing like the crab stitch, the
Uh,
backwards, that one's the only one I ever do it with. Um, one at a time or multiple can be talking about whips or books.
both. All the time. multiple works in progress, multiple books all the time.
Same, same. Bookmark or dog ear the pages?
Not anymore. No. Reformed dog ear, I think when I was much younger, but as an adult my books are expensive. We don't bend their pages.
We don't treat our babies this way.
Exactly.
Happy ending or realistic ending?
Happy. I don't need real.
Right?
Life is
I
too
know.
real.
That's why it's all about escapism, right?
Yes.
Let's see. Color work or texture?
Probably color work, although there's place for both.
Yes. Meet your favorite author or your favorite character?
Character.
Who would you meet?
Oh, I have no idea. Any character from
You just said it so
okay.
fast. I thought maybe you had somebody in mind.
Well, they say never meet your heroes,
Right.
but those are real people. Characters aren't real, so I would totally meet a fictional character. You know what? I just came up with my answer. I want to meet Tarn from Fourth Wing, which is a dragon, but I would like to meet him.
Yes. Yes, she would be so fun. Or he would be so fun. Okay. Let's talk about the book. So
Good.
I'm getting warm. I'm in my basement and it's not supposed to be this warm in my basement, but it's disrespectfully hot outside.
Basement just be cold.
Okay, so talking about the book, just a brief synopsis for those that are joining us. So, and this has been a while for me, so I'm totally going to read this synopsis off of my outline because my memory needs to get jogged a little bit. So, Poppy lives in the solitary life of a maiden where she must wear a veil so that no one can look upon her, and she's kept apart except for a select few. No one's permitted to speak to her, look at her face or anything like that. What's going to become of her life after giving herself to the gods? She doesn't really know, and nobody wants to talk about it. So she's determined to live as much of her life as possible. So she sneaks off to do all these things that help her live her life. And she ends up in a bar, pub, something in a village, and ends up meeting this really cute guard. And she's like, but she's wearing a mask to try and protect her identity. Well, then that guard shows up to be her new guard and starts tempting her toward things that are forbidden. So we've definitely got the forbidden trope here. I'm afraid, I don't want to give away any spoilers yet because obviously we haven't reached that part of the program. But yeah, definitely a forbidden love kind of a thing going on. Forbidden everything, I think.
Yeah, nothing is allowed.
Nothing is allowed.
Nothing is allowed.
So, as we discussed, it's a fantasy romance. I was reading through the notes and I saw a few of the things that you added, and I had to laugh out loud because we really are aligned on so much of our thoughts for this book.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, why don't you give me your first reaction to this book?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. Like many fantasy books, a little bit of a slow start, but by the time I got 50 to 60% of the way through, I kind of like sped through it and like was invested. I had a few like pet peeves with the story, a little bit more with like world building stuff.
Her name.
But overall, like, yeah, the way Penelope goes straight to jail.
It drove me nuts too.
I was just like, she could have just been Poppy. Whatever. Not really a big deal. Also, with like the names of like places, they weren't like fictional. They were names of real places in the world just spelled wrong. Like Macedonia is a real place.
Yeah, I noticed.
Country. And I'm just like, what? You couldn't have just
like,
anyways.
I wondered if she was trying to set this in the real world and was just spelling things wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. But overall, like, I would say, like, I had a good time.
Yeah.
In a sentence.
Had a good time. Don't need to repeat it.
Exactly. I'm not going to reread this book, but I had a good time.
Yeah. I kind of felt the same way. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think there was anything new and amazing about this particular book, like as a start of a series. Nothing really set it apart from any other series that you're going to read, romantasy wise. But I did find it entertaining. I enjoyed it. I read it, and I was interested enough to go ahead and put a hold on Libby for the next book, which I've again been putting off. But yeah, I do find it like I feel like it's easily forgettable. So thank goodness for Reddit and those people posting their synopsis, very detailed synopses online, so that I can go back and reread it before this event tonight.
What I did for this book, and I do for a lot of fantasy books if it exists out there, people will make those like kind of like retelling of the book.
That's what this was.
Yeah. And that's exactly. I watched this one girl. I think her channel is called Aviva's Library, and she made books for each of the From Blood and Ash series, and I will like watch them in bits. Like as I read a few chapters, I'll like watch the video just in case I like missed anything.
That's awesome. I need to. What was the name of the channel?
Aviva's Library. Instagram? I think she's on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think her videos are from like 2 years ago. But I was just now
watching. Older series, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember.
Yeah. I think this came out in 2020.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
For some reason I thought it was older than that, but I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So what did you think? You touched on this a little bit, so let's dig in a little deeper. What did you think of the world building? Did you find it easy to visualize, or did any of the people and places confuse you?
I had a hard time with the world building. That was probably like my biggest negative about this book, and continue with no spoilers. It continued to be that way in the second book, where I had. Yeah, I know. That's kind of why I was like not ready to quite recommend it to you yet. But it's a lot of just kind of telling instead of showing, which is a pet peeve of mine. And like a lot of the world building scenes, like there was one in particular that comes to mind where Poppy is sitting with I think the priestess, and she's just reading from a history textbook out loud. And those sentences a lot are like a huge info dump. Like I think that chapter just served as an entire info dump, and like I can't digest the information that well in that way. Like it needs to be woven into the story for it to like, stick with me. So just kind of like having that huge dump of information, like, and that wasn't the only time, like it happened again and again. I just didn't really love that piece of it. And then it was kind of like we'd reference it here and there, and then there's so many different kinds of like magical, like not human, like people that aren't people. There's so many people that aren't people that I had such a hard time trying to keep straight like what the rules are with all of them.
Yes, I struggled with that too. I made a note, like I don't know if you saw this in the outline, but have you read that Vampire Academy? Was it called Vampire Academy series by Rochelle Mead? So
I
talking
haven't.
about super old series. I think it came out around the same time as Twilight, and frankly, I think it was a much better series than Twilight, but I digress.
Hot
Um,
take. Now
yeah,
I
it
have
was
to look it
really
up.
good. Yeah, you should. It was really good. I loved it. But like so many of the creatures or the non-people kept reminding me of some of them in her books.
Mhm.
So I struggled a lot trying to kind of keep the rules straight in my head for each of them, and like their like what capacity, like what kind of mental capacity do they have, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what do they do, like why are we afraid of them, what, like that kind of a thing. And excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, it took me a while to kind of like connect that terminology that she was using, because I think there was so much telling and not showing. I think
Yeah.
that's the crux of it right there. And I have that same pet peeve. Like, especially in a fantasy book, you got a world build.
It kind of reminds me of like, if you ever watch a movie where like before the movie starts, there's like 3 screens of
Oh,
text
you mean
that you have to
like the Star
read.
Wars movies?
Yeah, like Star Wars. I've only watched a few Star Wars movies, but like plenty of movies that do that too, where it's just like, here's all the background you need to know before the movie starts, and I'm like, I'm immediately mad. I don't want to like
I
have
didn't
to.
come here for this.
I didn't come here to learn. I came here to be entertained. Yeah, it reminds me of that a bit. And I actually like have a note in like my notes app where I was like, okay, like this is the definition of this creature and this kind of
Oh,
person means
that's
this.
smart. She
But
should have had a
then
glossary or something.
exactly. And then no spoilers, but like you learn, at a certain point in the book that like maybe all that wasn't exactly as you thought. And so I had to like unlearn all that information and like reformat it, so to speak. Anyways, it
I
was
get
hard.
it. By the
Yeah.
way, let's see, Rainy Day Women Jewelry. She just said, "What a cool backdrop."
Oh, that's
She's
my
looking at
friend
your book
Julia.
there.
Hey, Julia.
Okay, so what did you think of the main character? Horrible naming aside, because
Yeah.
that was so
Oh,
weird.
Penelope. Please, nobody. I beg you all. Like,
Don't ever name
nobody
your
use that.
child.
It's like it's the Renesmee of from Blood and Ash.
Yes,
Like
that was bad.
Poppy,
I don't
I've
know
seen
why.
actually as a name. Like people use with baby names nowadays, which is like fine. Like that's
Right.
acceptable. But Penelope is not a name, and don't try to make it one.
Like, why didn't
Anyways,
you just do Penelope? Why did you have to add the H?
yeah, I know. I know. I overall didn't dislike her too
Same.
much. Besides the name, Poppy, she's okay. She's cool. I feel bad for her. She's definitely a little naive, and that's to be expected, right? Because she wasn't allowed to do, as you said, literally anything. She couldn't look at anybody, see anybody. It really, she lives this very like restricted life. So I can kind of sympathize with like maybe you're naive and not picking things up. And then I feel like they had this whole plot device of this diary being the diary was like this woman's basically just like a smut book within this book. That's how Poppy gets her sex education, which is like questionable. but,
I
but
mean,
nonetheless.
I'm gonna just throw it out here for a second and just say that there is an entire generation of kids that learned from a book, that they were given a book by their parents, and I'm of that generation.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
really, mom? It's got coloring pages. Like,
Yeah.
what the?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought that I actually really liked her. I thought she was really kind of badass, and I loved her spunk, and she had such a kind heart. But she definitely was naive. um, she, I think, I know you're trying to attribute this to her age, but I feel like even 18-year-olds can figure out logic, and sometimes she wasn't picking up logic very well.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
frustrated me at times. What about Hawk? What did you think of him?
Um, at first, Hawk was like a blank slate to me. Like I couldn't even envision a face. I kept
Yeah.
like, I feel like taking other male leads from other fantasy romance books I've read and just like putting them into Hawk, because he felt like this like compilation of like cliches, especially like Rhysand from Akatar and things like that. But the more the book went on, the more he grew on me, and especially by the end, I was like, okay, like he's got some flavor. There's some pizzazz. Like I'm interested to know what he's gonna do next, because
He
at first I was
definitely
like,
said all the right
yeah,
things and was
he
acting
said
all the
all the
right
right things.
ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He
for
definitely
sure.
was some pretty good book boyfriend material, I think.
Yep,
Oh,
yep.
Chris Smitty said
Like,
Hawk was a cartoon character, like Flynn Rider. I love that.
I could
That's,
see that. I
yeah.
could see that.
And then your friend Julia, you said that Penelope makes her think of Bridgerton, which that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, hey Katie, that's my friend
Oh,
Katie. She also read From Blood and
I love
Ash.
it.
We are constantly like exchanging like book recommendations with one another, and yeah,
I love it. I love it. Well, that's what friends are for. That's what friends do,
exactly.
right?
We are
Uh,
book besties.
I love it. Um, okay, so let's go. I have one more question before we get to spoilers. So the themes of freedom and choice are heavily explored in the book. How does Poppy's struggle for autonomy reflect these themes?
Mm. This is a good one because I feel like she doesn't have like freedom or autonomy for like basically the entirety of the book until she meets Hawk, and he kind of like she start you can see like even from the very first chapter she's like dipping her toes into that world when she sneaks out to the Red Pearl,
Hmm.
but she's just like not sure if she's like ready to like take it for herself. And then I feel like by the end she's like, is this like, do I want him because like I can choose him, or do I want him for
Right.
him, sort of thing. I had
Like,
that thought too. I don't
is this
know.
my, am I settling because he's the first option that's come along that I might have a choice with? Or,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, like just the first person who's ever shown you kindness and treated you like a real person. Like, does that mean that's like, is this love? You know what I mean?
right. No, that's a really fair point. I think it's a really good point. I
Yeah.
think too, like, I wish that, um, shoot, I had a train of thought and I think it just went right off the
No,
cliff.
it's all good. Um with her whole like kind of struggle to like reconciling her identity as the maiden, I really struggled with Victor's character, because like you could tell she loves him and respects him, but I'm also like, if you really loved her, you would just like, you
Get her out
wouldn't
of
let
there
all this, yeah, you
somehow.
would get her out of there. You wouldn't let this happen to her and like let her live this like absolutely miserable life. So I'm like, I know he's not her dad, but he's like a father figure to
Right.
her in a way. I'm like, a real dad wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah. I also struggled with the absence of her brother.
Yeah.
You know, like it seemed like once he ascended, nothing. Like, I don't
I had
know.
a lot of questions about him.
Yeah. Like, I feel like in the book, they keep talking about how close they were and they're pushing this relationship that she has, this close relationship that she has with her brother. But again, it's the telling, not showing, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no letters, there's no correspondence. Why?
Yeah, even if I had like a chapter or something, or like some like kind of snippets into the past, or like
Right,
stories about them as kids together, like you might feel more connected to his
right.
character, even though he's like
Something.
not even in this book. But you're right, like she talks about her brother, and like you really don't know much about him or like what's going on with him, and you still don't at the end of the book. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like a big
And
missing piece. I
like, I
felt.
feel like she's going to use him as a plot device later down the road,
Oh yeah, for
but
sure.
I'm not going to be able to believe that plot device if I don't have the other stuff to support it, you know?
Yeah,
So I don't.
definitely.
Okay. So let's talk spoilers. So if anybody has
Yay.
not finished the book yet, now is the moment that you might want to plug your ears, because we are going to get into the spoilers on From Blood and Ash and talk all about them. So there were a few things, a few big things that happened towards the end. So let's see, did any of these things, were you able to predict them, or did they surprise you? Let's talk about the Duke dying when he did.
I didn't predict it happening, so I was surprised when it happened. But I was kind of like, okay, like he had it come in. What's gonna happen
Right.
next? I don't know. What did you think?
I totally was shocked when it happened because, I mean, on the one hand, I felt like something was going to happen, but I thought that she was going to like make him into like a supervillain of some kind and like prolong his existence to like torment her in some fashion. But the way the story turned and how things have progressed, I see where he had to die, so I get it.
Yeah.
What about Lord Mazine?
Um. Again, like didn't predict it, but again, like wasn't super shocked. I love the way he went out. I love that
Uh-huh.
Poppy was the one to take him down. Like that was
She
probably
went psycho on
that
him.
was my favorite moment, I think, in the whole book was when Poppy killed Lord Mazine. Again, I don't like the naming in this book. It just feels like someone like it's like AI generated names. I'm sorry, but
If this
yeah,
was a few years, if this book was only released like last year, I don't know, it could have been.
could have been. I don't know. It's not, but like when you think it is, that's not a good sign. But yeah, I was that was my favorite part of the book. I think is when Poppy kills Lord Mazine.
Yes, I actually agree with you. That was my favorite part of the whole book. Um, I don't think anybody saw this as a surprise. Hawk being Prince Castile. I was
Oh
not
yeah,
surprised on that at all.
I actually like wrote down some notes.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
did.
on page 214, I was just like, and this was like way before his identity is revealed. And I was like, I get it.
This is it. This is him.
I was like,
Yeah.
he's the dark one for
Yep.
sure.
Yep, for sure. Easy peasy. And
Yeah.
like, this is getting back to, you just mentioned the dark one, and like that made me think of like when I was reading this, it made me think of the Grisha books, right? Like, I don't know, I felt like there were so many borrowed things in this book that just not there wasn't a whole lot of originality. I
Yeah.
digress. I'm sorry, I went back to an earlier point.
No, no, no. I actually had the same thought with his whole sort of like dual identity, and of course, like this book came out like I think 3 years before Fourth Wing, so it's not anything. But I read Fourth Wing
Mhm.
first, so in my head I was like, oh, this is just like Xaden, working for the other. Sorry, Fourth Wing spoilers, but like
Yeah.
Xaden's secret identity. But like, yeah, I was like, okay, so this is a thing in fantasy
Yeah.
books. Like this is a thing that happens
It
a lot.
is. I think that
Yeah.
it is. And the veil thing is actually something I had to look up because I had read another series earlier this year, something on Kindle Unlimited, and the main character in that one started out wearing a veil as well. And I
Oh,
was like, oh, what came first? Which one of these came up with this concept first? Which this one came out before that one, but it was still kind of like, huh, okay. Well, no,
yeah.
is there anything original anymore?
I want like a romantasy bingo card.
That's such a good idea. We
Yeah.
should do that. We should come up
Yeah.
with like some new challenge or something for Bookstagrammers.
But yeah.
Um, yeah, I didn't. So back to the spoilers though. Sorry, I got
Yeah.
I got sidetracked.
No, no, it's all good.
Squirrel. So the Ascended. They're really just bad, unnatural vampires that feed on humans. They accidentally create cravens, which I didn't pick up until I was reading somebody else's synopsis. We're supposed to be more like zombies. I was like I kept comparing them with like the Strigoi from the Vampire Academy series for some
Oh,
reason, a type of
okay.
vampire that was a little zombie-like, but I never computed zombie. I don't know. Anyway, uh, then the Atlanteans are good natural vampires that only feed on other Atlanteans, not humans, but their blood also creates the Ascended. So this whole aspect, basically, we kind of learn this towards the end when he's cluing her in on everything, and that was kind of a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
trying to keep it all straight. I think it was again another instance of telling instead of showing,
Yeah.
um, which just made me struggle with all of that a little bit.
Yeah. I had to go back and reread that conversation when Cass is telling Poppy the truth, like I think 3 times. So I'm like, wait a second. Like I'm having to go back and re-edit all my notes because I had the Ascended are this and Atlanteans are that, but they're
Yep.
actually not. And
Yep.
so yeah, it was hard to keep straight. And I'm still honestly, I'm 2 books in at this point, and I'm still not sure how to straight.
That's not really a good sign. I feel like I just did that too with another series. Oh, what's it? The what's it called? It's like Curse of Saints and Curse of Sins. Have you seen those popping around at all?
I'm not sure. Maybe if I saw the cover.
Yeah, I got 2 books in on that one. I probably would avoid that series. I don't think I'm gonna pick up the third. It's kind of similar situation. What you were just, it's what made me think of that. Sorry. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that struggled with that, because I feel like if you can't, again, it comes back to the world building, right?
Yeah.
And it's just not there.
Yeah,
Well,
it wasn't very tactical, and I feel like I still don't get. Here's my main thing that I don't understand. And maybe you understand this better than I do. Can explain this. Otherwise, this is a huge hole in my brain. It's like the concept of Atlanteans needing blood to survive, but they need blood of other Atlanteans. So like the Atlanteans, like there's only a finite number of them in the world, right? So
right.
like
How do they feed each other?
Passing the blood back and forth, is new blood created? Like, how does that work? I just don't get it. It's like cannibalistic, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, unless it's like, yeah, I don't know. I thought, well, maybe it has to do with like a mating thing. Like maybe once they reach a maturity and they have to find a mate or something, but nothing is really explained. There's no explanation there. At least not that I picked up on. If anybody else has any ideas, drop them. But
there's more on that in the second book, but like not. I'm still confused.
Okay, so with the next question, I know that you've already read the second book, so pretend like you are back before you started the second book. Going into that, like, given the ending of this book, did you have any predictions for the second book in the series? And what were you the most interested in seeing explored, either character arcs or plot or what?
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I wrote this down before I started, because I wrote this on our little note stock before I read the second book so that I would be able to remember this. So I definitely think or thought that like the next book is going to be a lot of Poppy just trying to mentally figure out where she stands in this whole like paradigm shift of her beliefs, and like this whole like trying to reconcile that Cass and Hawk are the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And I also my impression, and this was from my friend Katie, who's been commenting in the chat, because she had been stuck on the second book for some time. And I was like, okay, so it must be like a slow start. Is what I
You
had
guys are not selling this book for me right now. It is sitting in my living.
But I also really, really wanted to know what is going on with Ian, her brother, and like where's he at? What's his deal? Like, where is Ian? Hashtag where's Ian?
It's bad. Don't do
it. Oh yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if I'm gonna pick this up or not. You guys are definitely.
Where is Ian exactly?
Okay, I think what we're gonna have to do, that way we don't spoil the second book for anybody that actually wants to read it. I'm gonna have a separate discussion with you, so you can spoil everything for me, and then I can just go off into the sunset without reading it.
I think if you really liked this book, you'll really like the next one.
Okay,
that's what I think.
But if you're just kind of mid on this,
you'll be mid on the next. Is what I think.
It's been 3 months.
Oh, I have to rage quit it. I don't let something sit on my shelf that long. Like, it is a rage read at that point. Like,
I'm gonna finish this.
Yeah.
I don't care what I have to do.
And now I'm rewarding myself with an Emily Henry.
Oh, fun. Have you read Book Lovers?
I have. I loved it.
That was like my favorite rom-com I think that I've read in a long time. I really enjoyed that one.
Really loved it.
So I wanted to see, like, I definitely don't think Poppy is going to the altar quietly. Like, there's no way. She has had, I won't spoil it, don't worry, but it's very, very good. And if you haven't read it, you need to go read it because it's super cute.
No spoilers.
But I don't think that Poppy's going to the altar willingly. I don't think, like, now that she's quote unquote free from the maidens. I mean, she's never been free, I don't think, at any point in this book. Not really. Like, she is a pawn in everybody's game. And now she's a pawn in Cass's game. And he's changing the rules on her again. So I feel like she's gonna like dig her heels in, and like you said, I think that she's gonna have a lot of reconciling what she's been told with all of her life with what Cass is telling her now. But I also think that she'll come around to it probably pretty quickly, just because I feel like she's always had that doubt in her mind anyway. um, I want to see her come more into her power. And I also want to see more of Kieran, because I think that I could like him, even though his part in this book was kind of minimal. I feel like he's going to be fun.
Yeah, agreed. I definitely feel like after reading this book, like I wanted to see like who is Poppy like outside of like her circumstances,
Right.
and like who does she like want to be, not just like within a romantic relationship, but like not being the maiden, like who is Poppy, and
Right.
like I think she's totally like not a going quietly kind of person. And one of the things I noticed about the book that was funny in like the language they used, this is a side tangent, was that like they would use like very like fantasy-esque language, for lack of a better word, but then they would just like also have very modern slang.
That was yes, I think I made a note about that earlier, and I meant to say something about it and I forgot, like with the world building stuff. Like that annoyed me. Like pick it, like choose one way or the other and stick with it. Stop doing this
Yeah,
like I don't, what's going on? I don't even know. I'm very
I
confused.
know it's hard to like stay in the world when you're like, okay, like this is a different world. We use different language,
Right.
you know, and then we're like, oh, get real. And I'm just like, okay, what?
Yeah, it's very strange to me. Like
Yeah,
it was not consistent, and that did irk me as well a little bit.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm trying to think, did I miss anything? So do you have any final thoughts that you want to share on the book?
Um, trying to look through my random like.
Oh, you had mentioned something about the new adult and like the spice
Oh,
level. I
oh yeah.
was kind of surprised by that too. And like I am not a prude by any stretch of the imagination. All you have to do is look at my Kindle Unlimited and you will understand that about me. But I was surprised that this is a YA book, because
Yeah.
holy spice level Batman.
Yeah, I know. Well, see, I read your review on your blog before I read the book, and that was one of the comments you had made, and so I kind of went into it knowing that. I didn't even realize it was a YA book actually, like when I had like picked to read it. But yeah, I was like, this is definitely not YA spice. Like, I don't know. In high school, like I would have been like, this is like 50 Shades of Grey, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I would have been like, my mind would have been like exploded. So I mean, I'm not a prude either. Like I'm all for it. Like it was fine. It was, you know, it was what it was. But yeah, that was surprising.
I just wanted to
I
say
also
something, like in case there's, because I'm a parent, so I've got a 13-year-old boy, and like
yeah,
I have read most of the books that he's getting, like that he's into, and he's definitely into like the fantasy series and stuff like that. And I'm like, need to make sure like other parents understand that this is a little bit spicier than others. So
yeah. I am not a parent, but I will say I've been starting to recommend books to my mom and my aunt, and they're like
you
quite
don't want them to.
shocked when they get to certain chapters, and it's made for some really funny talks.
I bet. I bet. Oh my gosh, that's so
So
funny.
mom and aunt
I have
Pearl, if you're watching this, you're welcome.
I do feel like there's some instances where I'll recommend a book to my mom, and then I'm a little embarrassed that I recommended the book to my mom.
I
Like,
know, like I felt that way about Fourth Wing because my mom was like, "Oh, like you and such and so were talking about how good it was. Like I'm gonna listen to it on audio," and I'm like, "It's a really good story. Should I tell her? Should I warn her? No, I'll just
it's
let her
just gonna
think.
be
I'll just
fun.
let
Let
her
me know when
find
you
out.
get to this chapter, Mom.
I'm just like, I'll just let you find out. I'll just let you find
My mom
out."
actually does not read fantasy. I tried to get her to. There was a What was the fantasy? I tried to get her to read one fantasy book a while ago, and she wasn't having it. But she does read romance, and like we have crossed over a lot on our romance books because I mean that's what I started out reading that's what got me into reading way back in the day. So like there's not a whole lot of weirdness there, but like there are some books that I definitely will not ever be recommending to my mother.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, same. For sure. And I think she appreciates that.
Yeah, I think she's okay with that. Yeah. You mentioned that there were some annotations that you had made that maybe you'd want to share your thoughts on.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at them now. These are just like stream of consciousness, like things I'm thinking. This is funny. I think this like kind of summarizes the entirety of like the world building. Page 74. I'm so confused. I need more of an explanation on what the heck is the difference between an Atlantean, a Craven, a Dissenter, the Ascended, and just normal mortals. The map isn't helping either. And then I said, edit. I just needed to be patient. They started explaining on the next page.
I love that.
But after one page, I was like, I am so confused. Yeah. So I definitely predicted from the beginning that Hawk was like a double agent, not who he says he was.
I kind of feel like that was kind of like everybody, like it was a given. I think we all saw that one coming.
All that. And then on page 358, I think I had my favorite quote. And I don't know if this is like before. I guess this must be before she finds out that he's Castile. Because it said, Hawk wasn't the catalyst. He was the reward. And I was like, oh, that was cute.
Aww. I will say I got a little confused on whether Prince Cass was supposed to be the Dark One or his brother, who's supposed to be the monarch, like the king or whatever, or what. Like I got a little confused on which of them was supposed to be the Dark One, but I was never it was always a given that he wasn't who he said he was.
Yeah, I think Cass is the Dark One. That's like his, his street name. But
he's got cred.
He's got
the red pearl.
Street cred. But yeah, that was just like a few of the random like funny things I wrote down as I was reading it. I was like,
I love that though. I love your stream of consciousness on it. That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been so much fun chatting with you. I feel like we had a whole lot of things that we thought very similarly on, and we're just, I don't know, it's been a lot of fun talking to you. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I hope if you're ever interested, maybe you can come on for another one. I don't know. We'll have to
absolutely.
Talk. And we definitely need to talk about the second book so that you can spoil all of that for me and save me some time.
Oh, yeah. We'll take this offline.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks, everybody else, for tuning in. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye.
Yeah.